So see this one right here, look at where his hands are. That's in a holster. Boom.
Whoa.
Goes off.
What?
Here's another angle. Boom, right there. Newest email, the P320 cannot, under any circumstances, discharge without the trigger first being moved to the rear.
Okay.
Trigger pull versus moved to the rear. This is something that is sort of lighting the internet ablaze. It's not necessarily inherently political, but there is something here that we need to take a look at. And I will say this, sometimes people on the right are pandered to in a similar way that those on the left are. And what I'm talking about is sometimes the vet bros. And what I'm talking about is sometimes the back the blue. And you have people who go, no matter what the issue is, military good, military right. Now, I support a strong military. And I support a military force that can break stuff and kill people when needed. But we've also sort of seen this cloak it's been removed with our intelligence agencies. You probably used to think that the FBI were the good guys. A lot of people did. We now know that that's not the case. It's often not the case with police officers. And it's often not the case with firearms companies out there and how the military handles it therein. So this is a big story. The Sig P320, also known as the M18, which is the official pistol of the Army right now. It was launched in 2014. Very, very popular. Civilians, law enforcement. Let me just set this up. Sig spent millions lobbying, right, for the military pistol contract, okay? Where there were trials, there were a bunch of other guns, and Sig won the contract. It was in 2017, a 10-year contract worth $580 million. $580 million. And I just want to be clear, because a lot of people have gone out and purchased this before we get to the alleged accidental discharges, before we get to the alleged safety issues here. Pistols are almost never used in war, just to be clear. And the idea where people go, it's mil-spec, they'll then mark it to you. Mil-spec just means the bare minimum. I mean, Josh, you have experience with that. Mil-spec doesn't mean, oh yeah, this is the best.
Yeah. If I was going to use mil-spec, communications technology, it wouldn't be
right.
Better than Apple or something like that. Same thing with firearm. I mean, it's just, most people don't use pistols anyways. I mean, a lot of guys I knew, it's a secondary weapon, first of all, on everybody, except like an MP or something like that on a base. Right. But most people prefer, knife or a shotgun or something like that. Yeah. I didn't carry a pistol. The only reason I ever carried a pistol was if I was on a base overseas, like in Afghanistan, and I needed a weapon to go to like the PX or the cafeteria. Yeah. Like, they're going to yell at me if I don't have a gun, so I better put this thing in my hip. Yeah. And unfortunately, as is often the case with the military, they don't necessarily pick the best tool for the job. You automatically, sometimes it has to do with who lobbies the most effectively, who has pre-existing relationships that should be taken into consideration. For the longest time, we had the Beretta. The M9 was a Beretta 9mm, and that is not...
Well, it's because the same...
not a very fancy gun.
Well, the same tolerances that allowed it to be what they claim more reliable also allowed a lot of sand and dirt in, so when you're fighting in the desert, it becomes a problem. And then they had trials, and they have these criteria, for example, it has to have a manual safety. That's silly. Now, I get it's because you have a lot of people in the military who don't know how to handle guns, right? Lowest common denominator.
A lot of people, exactly. It's the lowest common denominator. People don't assume that. They just think military. They know what they're doing. So many people don't use their weapons. They're like, they work, they're a clerk or they're a cook or, no offense to these people, but, they're a mechanic or something like that, and they're not using their weapons on a regular basis. Then you're like, shit just hit the fan. Here's your gun. Like,
does it have a safety? And in trying to achieve this safety to prevent user error, right, a negligent discharge, it seems right now that at the very least, this handgun, Sig, maybe isn't as effective as far as implementing mechanical safety. So for example, like the Walthers that we have or Glocks, they have a trigger safety. They don't have a manual safety, but it also makes it much less likely for this to simply discharge on its own. If you're banking on the manual safety because you think people can't operate this properly, you're basically prioritizing the wrong thing. So I would say that's an argument to be made, and if you're out purchasing a firearm, you should take this into consideration. So now there's a lot of controversy surrounding this pistol, because allegedly someone in our armed forces had this gun in a holster on a table, didn't touch it, and it went off and killed one of our boys. All right? But this has been going on for quite a while as a controversy. And something to keep in mind is this is a masterclass in how to not deal with your customer base, namely Second Amendment advocates. So it's back, I think it goes back as far as, I have it here, 2017. Videos were emerging of this pistol, the Sig P320,
Which is the year they got the contract.
Yes. Yeah, they call it the M18 in the military because they're slightly different. But yes, this pistol failing drop tests, thanks to the internet, because people conducted them themselves.
We found in our testing that the P320 will fire if it is dropped at a certain angle. This angle is not found in any of the previously mentioned drop tests. If the pistol is allowed to drop with the bore in an upward direction and the frame and the slide contact the ground at the same time, the trigger continues to move to the rear and the pistol will fire.
What? Now, I know people will say, well, that's not a reason for they don't do the drop test that way because that could be inertia on the trigger. But again, you have plenty of other similar pistols, meaning striker-fired pistols, that wouldn't fail that test. So why are we prioritizing these certain parameters? That's the question that should be asked here. After that, let me give you a timeline. 2017, the Dallas PD pulled the P320 from their service. Bunch of law enforcement agencies beginning in 2018 started pulling them while they were still being used, the military variant, by our men and sometimes women fighting for this country abroad. And we decided to, because we could go on for hours here, there are a lot of claims are false. We're only including in this montage the clips where you actually see the moment that the weapon discharges, and it seems as though no one is touching it or operating it incorrectly. This is what has raised some eyebrows. So see this one right here, look at where his hands are. That's in a holster. Boom.
Whoa.
Goes off.
What?
Here's another angle. Boom, right there.
Whoa.
Goes off.
Started walking down the back lot towards the cruiser that I was going to take. And as I'm walking to the cruiser, I heard a loud
Right there.
bang, and I felt a searing hot pain in my right thigh. I was scared. I was very scared because I thought someone had shot at me.
In December of last year, Hobart Lawrence police officer Sam Schrader was part of a chase. His body camera captured his Sig Sauer P320 firing when he got out of his vehicle.
Stop resisting.
Body camera footage shows Milwaukee police officers trying to arrest someone. That was July 14th, 2020.
Stop resisting, sir.
The Milwaukee Police Association says Officer Robert Park's Sig Sauer P320 fired without pulling the trigger.
Yeah. So just to be clear, and I understand, like Glock had a bunch of lawsuits against them early on when police departments switched them. They said, oh, these are just accidental discharges. Well, and that doesn't mean that it's true. It wasn't necessarily true. A huge portion of them were police in the NYPD who were using revolvers, and unfortunately many of them would run with their fingers on, they'd run their fingers on the trigger of the revolver, which is not advised, but safer if it's a 13, 14 pound pull. You do that with a Glock, all of a sudden, bang, accidental discharge. Also, you have to pull the trigger on the Glock at that point in time to disassemble it, and people weren't used to it. So I understand the case to be made. I also understand that a lot of claims come forward when people just are handling the gun improperly. That doesn't seem to be the case in those videos. Then you add on top of that, in 2020, ICE reported that they were dealing with some discharges. Then there were some more lawsuits coming out since then. Here's what SIG has done. They have simply said, no, it is completely safe. There is no truth to any of this. And the only people criticizing us are doing so for profit. They even put out a website, P320truth.com, to make their case to the public. Now, this brings us to just recently. Active duty airmen was killed earlier this month when, from what we know, P320 in the holster, on the table, went off, shot him in the chest. Oof. So there's going to be an investigation. To be clear, this is alleged. This has been going on for a while now, but the response from SIG, and we're going to bring on Brandon Herrera to discuss this because he's an expert in this area. I noticed this. Yes, because I am signed up to their newsletter. Their first, I guess this was their statement. Notice how the wording changed. They said, the P320 cannot, under any circumstances, discharge without a trigger pull. That is a fact. Okay, if that's true, got it. Then the gun is safe. But then their email sent on Tuesday, I noticed a word change, and many people out there did too. And I think it's important to do this because obviously we know that government can avoid accountability. And private companies tend to be more correctable than the government because of the free market. But they get it wrong sometimes, especially if they feel enabled by the government. And Sig has taken the approach, may we remind you that we have this giant $500 million military contract? Yeah, but that doesn't affect the safety of the gun. So they went to trigger pull, newest email, the P320 cannot, under any circumstances, discharge without the trigger first being moved to the rear.
Okay.
Trigger pull versus moved to the rear. That seems like a very conscious choice of language. And let me tell you why. And again, I showed you this earlier, completely unloaded, but for all you safety Sallies out there, this right here, when you measure a trigger pull, I guess I'll have to do it with my left hand. If you read any reviews on firearms, they will say the measured trigger pull. So they'll tell you the measured trigger pull, it breaks at somewhere 8 pounds, 9 pounds, 5 pounds. So they will take a gauge and they'll pull it, and that's a trigger pull. You guys hear that? Okay, so that is the term that is used. That means a trigger pull. That's how they measure trigger pulls. Trigger move to the rear. Look, I could do this all day. Even see the cylinder moving and not pull the trigger. So this is not a problem. It goes bang when I do this. But when the trigger moves to the rear, does it go bang when I do this? 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 This is different from this. And they changed those words and people noticed it consciously. They went on to say the allegations against the P320 are nothing more than individuals seeking to profit or avoid personal responsibility. Yeah, crap on your consumer base. Let's see how that works. It is one of the safest, most advanced pistols in the world, meeting and exceeding all industry safety standards. Its design has been thoroughly tested and validated by the U.S. military, mind you, and law enforcement agencies, mind you, at the federal, state, and local levels. Yeah, I don't think that you realize that doesn't mean what you think it means anymore, Sig.
Plus, those people are reporting issues.
Yes, exactly.
The same people you're using as an example of testing it are going, hey, yeah, we tested these, but whoops.
And just to be clear, when they say only for profit, we have no issue with Sig. I even gifted a Sig rifle to Tim Pool in 2020, for those of you who remember.
We obviously wanted to send our sponsor, Walther, but I don't even know if they have anything compliant with New Jersey. And handguns are a lot harder to get in New Jersey. Long guns are a little bit different. So we will be sending you, now courtesy of Sig, I have to say this legally, but we will be the ones sending you, actually, a brand new Sig Sauer M400 Tread. It's a sporting semi-auto rifle in the AR-15 family or platform. Again, it's from me, compliments of Sig, because we told them about your scenario. They're actually we're going to send it directly to your FFL, and they will immediately make the adjustments needed to make it New Jersey compliant, which typically means shittier.
So,
but why are you dressed like Fabio?
I think it was Cultural Appropriation Viking Day or something like that. And to be clear, I want to give the anti-gun lobby, the anti-Second Amendment advocates, I want to give them no excuse. I want to give them no quarter. And that's why this is a discussion that needs to take place, especially if they're hiding behind the military, if they're hiding behind law enforcement, and there is something here. Because you have people on the left, just to be clear, I mean, they're still arguing about things that don't even exist, like ghost guns. Though, granted, sometimes, Toolman, we know that can be a problem. It's not dangerous, it's just off-putting. Oh, you're still here? And you're still watching this on YouTube? You've probably noticed something is missing by now. I'm not here. That's because the Live Daily Show is now streaming exclusively on Rumble weekdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. Tune in there, where nothing is censored.